Think about the last app you really loved, not liked, loved. The one that felt like someone had designed it just for you. The one you told your friends about. The one that made you think, wow, the future is actually here. Now think about what it looks like today. Slower, more ads, features locked behind a paywall. The thing you loved about it quietly removed and replaced with something that makes them money. You probably thought you were imagining it. You thought maybe you just got used to it. Maybe your standards changed. No, the product actually got worse. On purpose. The company made it worse deliberately because making it worse is more profitable than keeping it good. And this is not just apps. It is streaming services, subscriptions, cars, farm equipment, video games, even the AI tools millions of people started relying on in the last 2 years. I have watched this happen to nearly every product I use. And once I understood why it kept happening, I could not stop seeing it everywhere. There is a word for it. 20 minutes. Let us go. The pattern. In 2023, a writer named Cory Doctorow gave this phenomenon a name, Enshittification. Ugly word, perfect description. He described a cycle that almost every technology platform follows. 3 stages, always in the same order. Stage 1, be good to your users. Give them a great experience. Make the product feel generous, fast, and useful. Get them hooked. Stage 2, be good to your business customers. Invite advertisers, sellers, developers onto the platform. Give them access to the audience you built in stage 1. Let them make money so they become dependent on you. Stage 3, take everything for yourself. Squeeze the users, squeeze the businesses. Extract every possible dollar from both sides because they are already locked in and leaving is too painful. That is the cycle. And the reason it keeps happening is not complicated. Public companies have a legal obligation to maximize shareholder value, not customer satisfaction, not product quality, shareholder value. The moment a company goes public or takes venture capital money, the clock starts ticking. Growth has to go up, revenue has to go up, and when you have already captured most of your market, the only way to keep revenue climbing is to start extracting more value from the people already inside your ecosystem. The product getting worse is not a bug. It is the business model working exactly as designed. And right now, you are watching it happen in real time with the technology you probably used today. The one happening right now. 3 years ago, ChatGPT launched for free. Unlimited access. No restrictions, no paywall. You could ask it anything as many times as you wanted, and it would answer instantly with the most capable AI model on the planet. It felt like magic. Within 2 months, it had 100 million users. Fastest adoption of any technology in human history. Faster than the internet. Faster than smartphones. Faster than anything. And it was completely free. You used it for everything. Writing emails, debugging code, planning trips, explaining concepts your textbook never made sense of, drafting messages you did not know how to start. It was the most generous tool any company had ever given anyone for free. Now think about what it looks like today. You open it up. You ask a question. It answers. You ask a follow-up. Halfway through your second message, a gray box appears. You have hit your daily limit on the good model. You can keep using the worse one if you want. Or you can come back tomorrow. Or you can pay $20 a month for the better tier. But even then, you get a few messages in on the best model before another message pops up telling you to come back tomorrow. Want unlimited? $200 a month. And even that has limits now. Want more than that? You're paying per use. Watching a meter tick up in the corner of your screen as you work. The free version still exists, but it is not the tool you fell in love with. The responses feel shorter, slower to think, wrong more often. The good model is locked behind the paywall, and the free one has been quietly dialed down so the paywall feels worth it. This happened gradually enough that most people did not notice the exact moment it changed. You just woke up one day, mid-task, and got told to come back later. That moment of friction, that tiny spike of frustration, that is not a bug. That is stage 1 turning into stage 2 right in front of you. And it is not just OpenAI. Claude does the same thing. Gemini does the same thing. Every major AI tool started generous, got people hooked, and is now slowly building the cage. OpenAI reportedly lost over $5 billion in 2024. $5 billion. They are burning through investor cash at a rate that makes every other tech company look frugal. Google is spending tens of billions building AI infrastructure. Anthropic, Meta, Microsoft. All of them burning money faster than they can earn it. They are in the subsidized phase. The phase where the product is artificially good because investors are funding the gap between what it costs to run and what users pay. Sound familiar? Because every company in the rest of this video did the exact same thing, made the product artificially good to build dependency, then changed the terms once you could not leave. The question is not whether AI follows this pattern. The question is what stage 3 looks like. Will they put ads in the responses? Imagine asking an AI a question, and the first paragraph is a sponsored recommendation. It sounds absurd now. So, did ads in your Instagram feed in 2013? Will they charge $50 or $100 or $200 a month as the baseline instead of the premium? If the tool has become essential to your job, what choice do you have? You will pay it the same way you pay for Microsoft Office or Adobe Creative Cloud. Not because you want to, but because your work depends on it. Will the free tier become so limited it is essentially useless? A chatbot that can answer basic questions but nothing complex, just good enough to remind you what you are missing, just bad enough to push you toward the paywall, or will it be something we have not even imagined yet? A new tier above $200, a different model for businesses at $500. Per token pricing baked into every interaction so you stop thinking and start counting. Nobody knows the exact path. But we do know this. You have already built AI into your workflow. Students use it to study. Professionals use it to write and research. Developers use it to code. Businesses run entire operations on it. Some people use it so often they cannot remember what their work process looked like before it existed. That is the lock-in. And the lock-in is the whole point, because once the switching cost is high enough, they can do whatever they want, and you will pay it. Because what are you going to do? Go back to doing everything manually? Go back to spending 3 hours on something that takes 10 minutes with AI? That is enshittification, and it is not even started yet. So what comes next? Nobody knows exactly, but if the pattern holds, the squeeze is not a question of if. It is a question of when, and when it comes, you will pay it, because by then, you will not remember how to work without it. The ride that was never real stage 3. What it actually looks like when it arrives. 2014, Uber launches in your city. You open the app, a car arrives in 4 minutes. The ride costs half of what a taxi charges. The car is clean. The driver is friendly. You rate each other. The whole experience feels like the future of transport. It was incredible, and it was a lie. Uber was not cheaper than taxis because they built a more efficient system. They were cheaper because investors were subsidizing every single ride. Every time you paid $8 for a trip that cost $15 to provide, an investor somewhere covered the difference. Uber lost over $25 billion between 2014 and 2023. Billion, with a B 25 times over. The plan was not to build a better taxi service. The plan was to destroy the existing one. Be so cheap that taxis cannot compete. Wait for taxi companies to collapse. Then raise prices because you are the only option left. And it worked. Taxi medallions in New York City went from over $1 million to under $200,000. Drivers who had taken out loans against those medallions went bankrupt. Some took their own lives. An entire regulated industry gutted in less than a decade. Meanwhile, Uber was telling drivers a different story. Be your own boss. Set your own hours. Make great money on your own terms. And in the early days, drivers did earn well. Uber needed them. The platform was nothing without cars on the road. So they paid generously. Bonuses for peak hours. Incentives for completing a certain number of rides. Some drivers were earning 6 figures. That was stage 1 for drivers. Be good to them, get them dependent. Then Uber cut the rates. Quietly, gradually, introduced algorithmic pricing that paid drivers less per mile while charging riders more. Removed the ability to see where a ride was going before accepting it. penalized drivers who declined too many trips. The drivers who had quit their jobs to drive full-time were stuck. They had car payments based on their old earnings. They had no other income. And the app that promised freedom had become a boss worse than any they had left behind. Today, an Uber often costs more than a taxi used to. Drivers earn less than minimum wage in many cities after you account for fuel, insurance, and car depreciation. And the service is worse. Longer wait times, dirtier cars, drivers working 16-hour shifts just to break even. The product is worse for riders, worse for drivers, better for shareholders. That is stage 3. And the darkest part? After destroying an entire industry and squeezing both sides of the marketplace, Uber still barely turns a consistent profit. They enshittified the entire transportation industry, and almost nobody got rich except the early investors who got out. The app your entire life is on. If Uber is enshittification at city scale, Discord is enshittification inside your friendships. Discord launched in 2015 as a free voice chat app for gamers. No ads, no data selling, no paywalls, fast, clean, and generous. The whole pitch was, we are not like Skype. We actually respect our users. And it worked. Millions of people moved their entire social lives onto Discord. Not just gaming, study groups, work teams, creator communities, friend groups that talk every single day. Servers with thousands of members built over years. Then Nitro arrived. Then server boosts. Then they started pushing to become a general social platform instead of a gaming tool because gaming alone was not a big enough market for their investors. Then in 2024, they started experimenting with ads. Then they updated their privacy policy to allow user data to be used for advertising purposes. The specific language gave them permission to collect your activity, your messages, your server participation, and share it with third-party ad networks. The app that built its reputation on not being creepy quietly became exactly as creepy as everything else. The app got heavier, slower, bloated with features nobody asked for, quests, profiles, AI integrations shoved into every corner. You cannot leave. Your server with 10,000 members cannot be moved to another platform without losing half the community. Your group chat with your closest friends is on Discord. Years of shared messages, files, inside jokes, pinned links. All of it lives on their servers. That is the lock-in. And they know exactly what it is worth. They did not build a chat app. They built a social dependency, and now they are monetizing it. The game that never ends. You used to buy a video game for £40 and get the whole game. Every level, every character, every feature. Done. Now you buy the game for $70 and that is just the entry ticket. Season pass, battle pass, cosmetic packs, in-game currency you buy with real money. Progression systems deliberately slow down so you are tempted to pay to skip the grind. The game did not get more expensive to make. The publishers just realized you would keep paying, especially after they hooked you for free in stage 1 with a free-to-play launch or an open beta that felt generous. Fortnite made over $26 billion, not from selling a game, from selling things inside a game that was technically free. The product is the hook. The monetization is the business, and the psychological design is deliberate. Limited time offers create urgency. Daily login rewards create habit. Social pressure from friends who already bought the skin creates demand. Every mechanic is engineered to make spending feel voluntary, when the entire system was designed to make not spending feel worse. That is enshittification applied to entertainment. The product is not the game. You are. The tractor you cannot fix. Discord did it with your friendships. John Deere did it with something far more important. A farmer buys a John Deere tractor, not a small purchase. These machines cost $300,000 to $500,000. You would think that if you spend $500,000 on a piece of equipment, you own it. You can repair it, you can maintain it. It is yours. You would be wrong. John Deere locked the software in their tractors so that only authorized John Deere technicians can perform repairs. If something breaks during harvest season, the farmer cannot fix it themselves. They have to wait for a certified technician to come to their farm. Sometimes days, while their crops sit in the field. The tractor works fine mechanically. A farmer with decades of experience could fix it in hours, but the software will not let them. This got so absurd that farmers in the American Midwest started downloading cracked Ukrainian firmware and installing it on their own tractors just to bypass the restrictions. $500,000 machines running hacked software because the company that sold them decided ownership does not mean what it used to. John Deere did not build those software locks to make the tractor better. They built them to make repair profitable. For John Deere, not for the farmer who bought the tractor. You do not own the product. You own the right to keep paying for it. Why it keeps happening? Uber, Discord, gaming, John Deere, AI, different products, different industries, same outcome. And by now, you are probably thinking the same thing I was the first time I mapped this out. Why does nobody stop it? Why does every company eventually turn against its own users? Every company in this video followed the same pattern. Start good, build dependency, then squeeze. The reason is structural. Public companies report earnings every quarter. A CEO who makes the product worse but increases revenue gets a bonus. A CEO who keeps the product great but lets revenue flatten gets fired. That is how the incentive system works. So every quarter, someone in the company asks the same question. Where can we find more revenue? And the answer, eventually, is always the same. The users. Raise prices. Add ads. Reduce the free tier. Lock features behind a paywall. Collect and sell data. Each individual change is small enough that most people do not leave. And they have teams that model this. Entire departments dedicated to finding the exact line between annoying enough to make money and annoying enough to lose users. They know the number. They have tested it. They have optimized it. The only thing that stops it is competition. When switching costs are low and alternatives exist, companies have to stay good because you can leave. But the entire playbook of modern technology is designed to make switching costs as high as possible. Your photos are on their servers. Your files are in their cloud. Your friends are on their platform. Your customers reach you through their marketplace. The lock-in is not a side effect. It is the strategy. Every free product is a bet that you will become dependent before they start charging. Every ecosystem is a wall designed to make leaving more painful than staying. Every update that removes a feature you liked is a calculation that you will complain, but you will not leave. And they are usually right. The question. So what do you do? The honest answer is there is no easy fix. You cannot opt out of systems that everyone else uses. You cannot avoid every company that follows this pattern because almost every company follows this pattern. But you can recognize the cycle while it is happening. Most people do not. They experience each stage as an isolated annoyance. They think the product just happened to get worse. They blame a bad update, a new CEO, a dumb decision. They do not see the system underneath. The quarterly earnings call, the investor pressure, the calculated squeeze, the switching cost that was designed years before they ever noticed the product getting worse. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. When a product is free, generous, and almost too good to be true, that is stage one. Enjoy it, but understand what comes next. No company burns cash forever. Someone is paying for your free experience, and eventually that someone will be you. When a product starts getting slightly worse in ways that make the company money, that is stage two. That is the moment to start reducing your dependency. Find alternatives, export your data, build redundancy. Do not wait until you are locked in. And when a product feels like it is actively working against you while still being the only viable option, that is stage three. That is where they want you, locked in and paying. Right now, AI is somewhere between stage 1 and stage 2. The product is still remarkable, but the cash burn cannot last forever. And when the investors want their money back, the squeeze will come. Every product in this video started the same way. Good, then profitable, then worse. The question is not whether the products you love will get worse. They will. The question is whether you will see it coming this time.